Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on authenticity, the art of being you. In regards to authenticity, I'm talking about as a speaker, a trainer, a facilitator, whenever you stand up before a group of people, present at meetings, how you become authentic, why authenticity is important, and why you need to bring your real, genuine, authentic self to the table, to the discussion, to the presentation. And authenticity, I've found in my work with public speaking and presentation skills, is one of the key traits that's required, that's respected, that's desired amongst those speakers. And as we go through this webinar, you'll see that some people sometimes tip too far with their authenticity, and that can have a negative impact. So welcome, everyone. How to participate in webinars. Please ask questions as we go, take notes, participate, apply the information to your own personal circumstances, and think about your presentation styles. Think about your previous presentations or future presentations. Is there anything you can do or you would have done differently that would have aided you in being authentic? I'm going to do a little authenticity audit and give you some tips to be more authentic. Let's get started. First of all, I love this quote from Oscar Wilde. Be yourself, everyone else is taken. So when we see trainers, we see speakers, we see those people that are doing really well, the Anthony Robbins of the world, we sometimes think that we need to be like them. So we mimic them, we try to become like them, and it's not necessary because it's your uniqueness that you bring to the discussion table, to the presentation. It's your unique stories. It's your journey, it's your understanding, it's your interpretations that people want to hear. So be yourself, everyone else is taken. There's no need to try and emulate other people that are really successful. Yes, take lessons from them, learn from them. What is it that they do, and incorporate that into your style, but don't do it to the extent that you lose your authenticity. Good morning, Rudy. We've just started, and I'm talking about authenticity and the value of authenticity as a speaker and as a trainer. So be yourself, everyone else is taken. So let's start. What is authenticity? I'll get you to type a few words in terms of what you think is authenticity from a public speaking, from a training perspective. What do you think authenticity means? Type it into the question and answer box. So I've got a few responses coming. It's about being genuine. Yes, your genuine, authentic self, they kind of go hand in hand. It's hard to be authentic and not genuine. Not putting an act on. It's being truthful. It's also legitimacy. And if we take authenticity to another language, made in Australia, that has a logo on it, made in Australia, and that lets you know that it's legitimately made in Australia. So there is some legitimacy around authenticity. And when you speak authentically on something that's maybe disruptive or change or an alternative viewpoint, your authenticity helps you gain legitimacy in presenting. So yes, that's what authenticity is. It's about being you. I talk to people in my workshops. It's about my bald head, my big ears, my pimples, my warts, my imperfections, just coming to the stage ready to share my true, authentic self. So thanks for all those remarks. So the next question is, why is authenticity important? Why does it matter? If we're giving good information, 5-step process to becoming financially secure, 3-step process to lose weight, 6-step process to achieve your goals for 2018. If we're giving honest information, why is authenticity important? Why does it matter? Can I ask you to type in your thoughts around what does authenticity bring to you when you're having a discussion one-on-one at a meeting or standing up presenting to a group of people? What is the value in being authentic? And I've got a few words coming through. It builds trust, certainly. And if you're giving a new idea, so you're selling information, and that's what public speaking or training is, you're giving information, people generally will only buy off you after they believe you, after they trust you. So it helps build trust, develops credibility, and also, yes, reliability. So if you're authentic all the time, you're seen as reliable. And one of the things with authenticity is who you are when you're not presenting. So let's say you're now having a morning tea break and you're the trainer, and people come and have a chat to you and ask you a few questions. And what they notice is the person off the stage is not the same person on the stage. You've kind of dropped your persona. Then that can cause confusion. Who is the real Peter? My aim is to be who I am on the stage, is who I am on a webinar, is who I am when you happen to sit next to me on an aeroplane as we fly between Melbourne and Perth. And with those credibility, trust, reliability, what you're doing is you're increasing your believability. Why is it important? So you're not hiding anything. There's no persona. There's no wall. You're seen as the real deal. Indeed, that's true. That's why authenticity is so important. So it does matter that you are seen as authentic, that you come across as being authentic. And authenticity is something that you need to carry through all walks of your life. So I blog, I write blog posts, I write newsletters. That authenticity needs to come through my written work, because some people read my content before they come to a webinar, before they come to a workshop, before they ask me to keynote speak at a convention. So authenticity is not something you turn on and turn off. So thanks for all those comments. So a quick authenticity self-audit. This is just a little tool. It's not quantitative. It's more just some questions to ask yourself. And as you answer these questions, and you can ask them of other people, it just gives you an idea of how you are perceived in terms of your authenticity. So the first question is, are you allowing your inner voice to guide you? This is your truth, your inner truth. Or at a meeting, are you saying what you think the meeting or the manager or the leader expects you to say? I was reading a Harvard Business Review article about dissension, so disagreeing, and great managers foster and allow dissension. But if you're the only one who dissents in a room of 10 people around an idea and you don't agree and you put an alternative one and you decide not to speak because you may be judged, that's kind of holding back your inner voice, your true message. You're not being true to yourself. The next question. Do you speak your truth? Are you honest around difficult topics? There's a few new people on the webinar, but most of you on the webinar know that I'm a person who stutters. I do remarkably well. I've had speech therapy and I do public speaking for my living, but there's that time when I really struggle to speak because of my stutter. I let people know that I stutter. And once upon a time, I wouldn't speak up. Even though I had something to contribute, I wouldn't speak up through fear. So I didn't speak my truth. Now I speak my truth. I let people know. And to some extent, I reveal vulnerability every time I get on stage, still as a person who stutters. Do others see your authenticity? I was lucky enough to do some speaking at a conference last year, and I was a reluctant speaker because they asked me to speak about something which is not my topic of expertise, more about my story and some tips that I did to be successful, which is not what I speak on. I speak about overcoming fear and becoming more effective as a public speaker, a trainer, how to be influential, and they're wanting me to speak on something that I don't speak on. I agreed, and I don't think I did a brilliant job. And people came up to me afterwards and they said, what I really like about you, Peter, is your authenticity. You're really genuine. You don't try and pretend to be something who you're not. So I'm, and self-evaluation, we shouldn't self-evaluation our presentation. So the presentation I thought I did not do that well at, obviously people appreciated and got something from it. Are you sharing your natural gifts and talents with the world? Your passions, your knowledge, your messages that your clients, your people, your community need to hear. To be authentic, you really need to share those natural gifts and the talents with the world. So that's just a quick little authenticity check. Ask yourself those 4 questions, and you can ask other people those questions as well, and you'll get an idea of how you fit in terms of you being authentic in the way you conduct yourself, in the spoken word, in public speaking, in training, in facilitation. All right, here's a little model that I've developed and been working on. It is an unpolished and an unfinished model. And it's called the authenticity paradox. So authenticity paradox is not my term. I have read that term somewhere, and I've tried to interpret it in terms of public speaking, presentation skills, training. So it goes a little bit like this. If you try to become too professional as a speaker and a trainer, so you're absolutely polished, you're almost perfect, you never make a mistake, you're absolutely on the money in your presentation skills, some people perceive that as fake. So you're a trainer and you've got knowledge in this area, and people ask you to share that knowledge, but it's shared at such a polished level, it's almost a performance. So at one end of the authenticity scale, we become so good, so polished that we're fake. Then at the other end, we're asked to speak and share, but we don't do a really good job. I guess I just described that presentation I did where I didn't speak on my topic and I felt a bit of a failure. So I'm an expert in this area. You're an expert in time management. You're an expert in goal setting. You're an expert in financial planning, and you come across as nervous. You and ah, you fidget. Your nonverbal communication is small, and you're seen as maybe a failure. So let me just put my story on this line just briefly. And it's about, let's say, if as a person who stutters, let's say I speak really beautifully, 100% polished, a plum in my mouth, not one stutter. I use the Queen's English beautifully, and I'm telling people that I'm a person who stutters. And I've done radio interviews about stuttering, and the radio interviewer said, Peter, you are so fluent, no one would believe you stutter. So I'm too good. I'm almost unbelievable as a person representing people who stutter because I don't stutter. If I stutter badly and I spit and my head jerks and I block as I used to do, then, and I've had speech therapy, obviously I'm a failure. The therapy hasn't worked. He's done hours and hours of therapy. He goes to a self-help group. He's meant to talk to people about how to overcome their stutter, which is not my area of expertise, but I help and support people, yet I can't be fluent myself. I'm a failure. So it's kind of hard. So sometimes I just need to relax a little bit and be authentic, and which means there will be some stutters will occur. Some stutters will occur. I cannot do a workshop and not stutter. So this is where you're authentic. I've been to Toastmasters a fair bit, and when they enter public speaking contests, sometimes the Toastmasters, and these are the top speakers in Australia, are so polished, it's such a performance that they are fake. So that's the paradox between authenticity. If you're too good, maybe you're seen as fake. If you really stuff up and you're too casual and too lackadaisical, maybe you don't know what you're talking about. You're a failure. But there's another axis that I want to share with you. And this is about speaking your truth. And we spoke about that as part of your audit. Do you speak your honest truth? I don't think this is the right way to go. I don't agree with everyone in the meeting. So if you are a failure, so let's say that I'm stuttering badly, which is okay, there's no crime in stuttering badly, but I don't tell my truth. I lie. I avoid speaking. Then what I'm doing is I'm being inauthentic through fear. I'm being inauthentic through fear. Let's say I do stutter badly and I'm having a bad day, and this might be a bad presentation day. So let's take stuttering out of it. You really struggle. It's one of the worst presentations you've done, or it's something you're really uncomfortable about. I watched TV last night. Those women that have come out and spoke about sexual harassment on some of the TV series and some of the plays that are going around Australia. So they're courageous. So if I stutter, or if you're fearful and you stand up and do the presentation regardless, and you tell your truth, you're authentic and you're courageous. Let's say you come across as really authentic. You know, your passion's coming through. You're absolutely believable, but you're not telling your truth. Then you're inauthentic, and perhaps you can be accused of manipulating. So the difference between influence and manipulation is purely the intent. So when I manipulate you, my intention is to get advantage from that situation. When I tell my truth and I come across as authentic and honest and genuine, this is when you're in the zone. This is the ideal place to be. You're seen as authentic and you're influential. People will trust you. They will buy your message. They will follow you call to action. They'll embrace your suggestion for change or disruption or an alternative way of doing things. So this is the sweet spot. I think authenticity, the important thing is to be telling your truth. That's the real authenticity. But this other paradigm, the fake to failure, just adds that other dimension. And then there's those people that are fake and they don't tell their truth. And these are also inauthentic, but they're still manipulating, but they're really polished and it's a practice script. And I'm not saying salespeople are inauthentic. When you go in with a problem and a salesperson has the answer, but it's when you get that cold calling, that sales, when they're trying to sell you something you don't want. And we've heard stories of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, where people end up walking out of a room buying a $20,000 get-rich-quick scheme that they don't need and they can never use. It's when you're driving your own agenda. An example here, and I don't like to speak about politics. I think an example here is our Prime Minister. Now, Malcolm Turnbull is known to be a strong supporter regarding Australia becoming a republic. He doesn't think Australia should have the Queen as a head of state, and he was a big mover of the Republican movement. Him and Paul Keating, so two sides of the politics, were big drivers of the referendum. Malcolm Turnbull is a supporter of the carbon tax. He supported the carbon tax that Julia Gillard brought in, and he lost his leadership of the opposition. So that's when the Liberal parties dumped him and brought in Tony Abbott. He's now our Prime Minister. And the Liberal Party has a policy of not supporting a republic and not supporting a carbon tax. So as Malcolm Turnbull talks about these things, it is really hard for him to authentically and genuinely say that we're not going to have a republic and we're not going to have a carbon tax. I don't agree with the carbon tax when we know what his true beliefs are. Moving on quickly. So you tell your truth, but you're really polished, and this is the Toastmasters. You're authentic, but you're less believable. You're less believable because it's a little bit too polished. So we can move a salesperson up there that is selling you something that you really need. And you've got a choice between, are you going to get an iPhone or an Android phone? Are you going to get a Bose sound system or a Sony sound system? And Bose costs a lot more. And so he is really authentic, but he sells it so beautifully and so polished that it's less believable. So I think being authentic and influential, where you're telling your truth and you're really in that genuine, authentic self, is the sweet spot. So that's my model. It's not finished. I'd welcome any ideas, any better words that I could put here. And of course, there's partial truths. So I've got black and white, telling the truth, not telling the truth. There's probably another paradigm where you're kind of partly telling the truth, but holding something back. That's for another day. So moving on, 5 steps to increase your authenticity. The first one is discover your strengths. Be aware of your strengths. Focus your strengths. And this is how you can sometimes share your gifts, your talents. Don't be afraid of your strengths. A lot of people hold back. We're very humble. Don't brag. Don't get in the ego state. Just share your knowledge unequivocally and unconditionally. In my world as a speaker, in sharing my knowledge and information, there's always that concern that what if someone else grabs my ideas and then uses them? There's lots of other competitors out there. A lot of people do what I do in terms of speaking. But my belief is in that whatever you give will come back. And rather than, okay, there's going to be more competitors, I'm going to grow a bigger pie. So more people know about this, so more people need this information. So the pie becomes bigger, so I'm not going to lose out. Manage your weaknesses, know your weaknesses. Don't be afraid of your weaknesses. Disclose your weaknesses. The power of vulnerability. Brene Brown's famous TED Talk about vulnerability and her book around courage, The Power of Vulnerability. So your weaknesses are not something that necessarily need to be pushed aside. Your weaknesses can increase your authenticity. So when I help people overcome the fear of public speaking, I run a workshop. I can hide my stutter. I can not mention my stutter. But when I reveal it as something that I've had to overcome and something that still haunts me day to day, then this weakness, in fact, makes me more authentic and becomes one of my strengths. Know your values, live your values, stick to your true colors, walk the talk. Don't speak one thing and then do another. Authenticity. The time management guru who starts his workshop 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late or goes 15 minutes over. The financial planner who talks to you about don't invest in non-depreciating assets, who drives a $100,000 Mercedes-Benz. There's just some values that are not congruent there. Strengthen your connection between your values and your behaviors. So this is walking the talk. Do people see you and articulate the things that you want to be known as and your values and your behaviors? So the way you do things and the things you articulate, are they consistent? You do that and you look and become very authentic. And lastly, build genuine and authentic relationships. This is how you can build your authenticity, those relationships where you are there, and think of networking not as exchanging business cards, but genuinely helping someone. And when you ask someone, what do you do? And not thinking, oh, I can sell to you, but rather, I know someone that might be able to help you. Let me connect you with someone that has similar interests. And rather than me thinking of you as a potential customer or someone that I can sell to, my purpose of networking with you is to build that authentic relationship. And 6, 7 touches down the track, you might refer someone to me that needs my help. And that's about authentic relationships. So there are 5 steps to build your authenticity to become more genuine. So we need to wrap up now. So I've covered what is authenticity. It's not being fake. It's about being authentic, genuine, legitimate, and truthful. Why is it important? It's how you build trust. It's how you build your credibility. The quick authenticity self-audit, those 4 steps you can go through. Do you speak to your truth? What do other people say about you? The authenticity paradox. If you push too far to become perfect, polished, not put one word out of state, out of place, you may be perceived as fake. If you muck up, you completely lose it, you become really nervous, you may be seen as a failure. But the important thing is if you're articulating your truth as opposed to hiding, not telling the truth, going along with the mob, with the group consensus because you're too afraid to disagree, and increase your authenticity through those 5 steps, which is about know your strengths, know your weaknesses, what are your values, make sure your behaviors and your values, they connect, and build those authentic relationships. Just to wrap up, I'm doing workshops all around Australia. Feel free to share. I've got Perth coming up in January. Difficult Conversations is my wife. We're going to Port Hedland. We're going to Karratha, then Brisbane, and more workshops in Perth. You can find all of these on my website, which just happens to be down at the moment. Next webinar. Where is my next webinar? I've lost my next webinar. The next webinar you will see on my website when it's up. If I can be of any further assistance to you, send me an email. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. And on Facebook, there's a Stories Out Loud Facebook page that features a little 6-minute story on me. I'm story number 3 in Stories Out Loud. Suzanne Waldron is the creator of Stories Out Loud. So yeah, feel free to make further use of me. Send any questions that I've glossed over, any further information you want. So just in ending, I think authenticity is one of the things that helps you most in the spoken word. And it means you don't have to be perfect. It means you can make a few mistakes, have a few stutters, have a few brain drains, a few senior moments where your mind goes blank. The important thing around authenticity is telling your authentic truth, your story, what you believe in, speaking up. And if you do that, you'll be more believable, more influential. People will trust you. You'll be seen as reliable. Authenticity, I think, is one of the keys to public speaking, presentation skills. Bye for now.